Hello and welcome to the Hash. It's Friday. Let's do this thing. We are in the Hash talking about the latest in crypto news and culture, and I am just going to throw it to Naomi, who has our first story of the day. Naomi, what you got?
I'm talking about it first. Hello, other team members. So I'm talking about Bank of America, where talking about this report that they released called Bitcoin's Dirty Little Secrets. Essentially, they said that there is no good reason to own BTC unless you see prices going up. And they talked a lot about decentralized finance. They said that it's potentially more disruptive than Bitcoin. They see DeFi as a radical change to mainstream capital markets. And apparently they don't see Bitcoin as that. So there's a lot to unpack in this report. We can go through it all, but I want to throw that question to the group to start off with. Do you agree that DeFi is more disruptive than Bitcoin? Will, you're like nodding your head there, so I'm going to throw to you first.
Oh, I want to talk about the other thing first. I think they're spot on that there's no reason to own Bitcoin unless the price goes up. I think that's just like a truism. Like, why would I own something unless the price is going to go up like an asset? That's just like stupid. But I thought it was funny. Overall, their critique of Bitcoin in this is like, again, really weak, which is kind of sad given that this asset has been around for 10 years and there's plenty of critiques you could raise instead that are a little bit more intelligent. I don't understand why they keep doing that. DeFi, definitely interesting. Kind of going back to when we talked about Goldman Sachs, I think like 2 or 3 weeks ago. I have a friend who works there and they're actively looking at DeFi as an alternative and something to like keep an eye on in the future, just because it is like their core business, right, is lending and financing and borrowing and all that stuff. And DeFi kind of takes away a lot of the friction. I don't have to go down to Goldman Sachs or a bank or whatever and take out a loan. I can just do it right from my computer and I don't have to trust anyone in the backside except a smart contract. So it is interesting. I think it's just frustrating overall that the weak Bitcoin critique again. I think these reports would have a little bit more punch if they were just like upfront about what they actually saw here. Because I think Goldman Sachs does see a little bit more than they're alluding to in these research reports.
So I think if we look at the amount of money that's flown into both markets, so I think according to DeFi Pulse at the moment, we've got 44 billion locked in DeFi, and then I think it's over $1 trillion as Bitcoin at the moment. So in terms of market allocation, perhaps you could say that Bitcoin is definitely more disruptive because people seem to be throwing their money there as this hedge against economic instability. But it is an interesting point you mentioned, Will, about the price going up, because I mean, people are banking on the price. They're putting their money into Bitcoin as this hedge because they see the value of the dollar going down. So, you know, in comparison, yes, Bitcoin will go up. And if it doesn't, it's not a very good hedge. So it's an interesting question. Ben, what are your thoughts on all of this?
I mean, there's a lot of stuff to unpack here. I'm kind of like over the framing of this as like, this thing's more disruptive than this thing, than this thing. Like, these are all different tools that can be used for different things. And I feel like the only reason they kind of put DeFi in contrast to Bitcoin was just to make the report punchier. They wanted that really good headline that would make people click. And so that was sort of my initial takeaway from this. I just don't see the utility of doing that. And Will, I had a little chuckle too at the idea of like, there's only no reason to put your money in Bitcoin unless the price is going up. It's like, yeah, no, like, what am I going to do it if it goes down? Like, come on, what are we talking about here? Well, another little thing I thought that came out of...
I'll just add something there because like Bitcoin, I mean, I can definitely see that because you can't use Bitcoin for other things other than the store of value. Whereas other currencies, I can definitely see myself still putting money in there even if it goes down because it's useful. It doesn't cost me anything. I can still save in other ways by using crypto in my everyday life. So Bitcoin in particular, I definitely agree. But Will, I want to throw this question to you.
I want to jump in right quick.
Oh, sure.
And just mention that, you know, they also said CBDCs were going to be kryptonite for cryptocurrencies, which also just seems kind of ludicrous to me based on like, you know, what those are intended to do and what cryptocurrencies are also functioning as. So there's just a lot of, you know, dissonance here, I thought, in this report that was a little bit frustrating.
Ben, I want to hear more about that.
I think we also need to define what disruptive means, right? Like, I think both DeFi and Bitcoin are disruptive for different things. And I tend to agree that this is just kind of like headlines and releasing reports for the sake of releasing reports. But Will, I know you wanted to jump in.
Yeah, I guess I think going back to Naomi's point, like what the Bank of America is kind of saying here is like Bitcoin is based on the greatest fool theory that someone's always going to have the ability to buy, or someone's going to want to buy your Bitcoin for more than you bought it for. And like that is thrown around time and time again. I think it's just extremely dismissive of the technology that's underpinning Bitcoin, and also kind of the larger macroeconomic situation we're in, where we're seeing mass money printing around the globe. And frankly, the Federal Reserve doesn't know what to do about it anymore. If you look at some of our reporting CoinDesk yesterday, where they decided not to do anything with rates, and they don't really know what to do about it, and the bond market is looking really wonky nowadays. So I'm going to toss it over to Zach. Looking good today. Clean cut. I like it.
Thanks, Bud. Yep. Thank you very much.
Always comment on the way Zack looks.
Thanks, Will. Appreciate you,
handsome man at CoinDesk. I gotta say something.
Appreciate you, man. Appreciate you.
Look
Good
like
looking
somebody
out.
Y Combinator.
Yeah, man. You never know. I think, the Bitcoin comparison aside, which I agree was like pretty shoddy, also like crypto and like kryptonite. They took some liberties here with, being creative in their framing. I thought that was interesting. But I think if we really think about like institutional DeFi, we've sort of talked about this a couple times on the show, I think there is a world, and maybe this is the first sort of inkling of that world, where banks sort of get in the composability game, right? You could imagine like your Bank of America online account, they could provide access to, the Aave money market or the compound money market. And there might be a world in which, banking and DeFi, instead of DeFi, erasing banking, erasing those middlemen sort of adopt, adapt, and incorporate some of the technologies that might be attractive to their customers. Where, hey, that'd be cool if in my Bank of America account I could put USDC onto these money markets that, give me more yield. Should I be able to tolerate that risk? So I don't think that's suggested here, but I think that could be a world in which we are. We might be headed toward that world, right? We've seen the institutional embrace of Bitcoin. What if we see the institutional embrace of DeFi, which is necessarily about the services that you can provide to customers? So I think that in the long term is sort of maybe what's interesting here to me, at least.
Well, and I want to go back to what Ben mentioned, this line where they said that central bank digital currency is kryptonite for crypto, minding the pun there that Zack mentioned. But Ben, what are your thoughts on that? Why, in what world central bank digital currencies are even a replacement for crypto? Crypto was created to get around these traditional financial.
Yeah, it just makes me feel like, they're like, okay, we're just gonna give you this thing that's kind of like Venmo because that's what you want, and we'll just make it. I'm not sure what they're getting at, because the idea with CBDCs is it's just sort of something that the government can control quite closely, and is sort of an easier way of transacting, ideally, and it's pegged to national currencies in these ways. And so the idea of crypto is to operate outside of these traditional financial structures. There's a reason that we are working on and continue to iterate upon things like Bitcoin and things like Ethereum, and that is a struggle. It's not because it's easy. It's because we're trying to create something that is outside of the models that are there already. And they seem to just think that CBDCs are going to be an incorporation of that into the existing models. So it just needs to be a fundamental misunderstanding of what the idea of crypto is and sort of the ethos of which it came from, this sort of cypherpunk ideals. And to me, just a lot of broadly missed contours there with that comparison.
What do they think we want? They're just like, they just want things that are digital. We'll give them that. It's like, no, you missed the point there.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm going to take my frustration, and we're going to take it into the next story, which I'm bringing to the table today, which is basically a double deposit on Binance by Filecoin. Now, this was really interesting. I was talking to our colleague, Colin Harper, who wrote this story, and essentially he kind of laid it out as Filecoin's API for checking deposits was potentially flawed. And Binance relied on that to check deposits. And so they ended up doubling a deposit that Filecoin miners tried to make. So, we've heard about these sorts of things. We've seen some of them in other cases. But, Will, what is kind of your initial reaction here, just looking at this? It was a really interesting occurrence that happened yesterday.
Well, it's a great day to be a Filecoin miner, I'll tell you that. It's extra 5 million in the bank. Kind of cool.
Yeah, right?
Filecoin's an interesting project. So kind of stepping back a little bit, there's all these kind of file systems you can use online, like Dropbox or Google has a lot of things like that. But the downside is that all your information is kind of stored in like a central silo. And so Filecoin addresses this by decentralizing the network across computers all over the world. And the only way that you can access that data is through the Filecoin network, which has a bunch of miners who are incentivized to like keep your data by mining and storing the data with the Filecoin, which is like FIL, I think is the token ticker or whatnot. And so, you have these miners all over the world that are storing your data, they're indexing it, and then you can pull from it later if you want. But you have to like give them some Filecoin to be able to like store your data and to pull it out and stuff like that. It's a pretty new network. It only launched in fall of 2020, and it was a long time coming. It's based on a lot of interesting decentralized web tech like IPFS. So it's one of the more cutting edge applications out there. So to me,
this was also, they were one of the huge IPOs of 2017, right? And they raised a huge amount of money and actually came, they have the product out now. So this was, one of the stayers from that movement back then.
Yeah, for sure. I think Zack can probably correct me. It's like 150 million ICO, maybe more than that. But regardless, I think the thing to... Yeah, get on that right now. So the interesting thing to me is like a lot of people are like, oh, like Filecoin, you messed up big, but they're one of the more like cutting edge teams out there, and there's going to be hiccups. And I think anyone who's using these networks just probably has to know that this isn't Bitcoin. Bitcoin's been around for a decade. It shouldn't really have any hiccups these days. Bitcoin still does every once in a while. In 2018, there was a really, really nasty minting bug in the Bitcoin protocol that was fixed silently. So these things still, they're tech. There's bugs. If humans are coding things, there's bugs. So I don't blame Protocol Labs for having a mistake. It'll be fixed, rectified, and seems like everyone's going along their merry way. But interesting story at the very least about how tech can break, and there's a lot of money behind it.
Yep.
Well, when you talk about those hiccups, what should someone who's using this, I guess, be aware of? What are those hiccups?
Well, I want to get Zack. Do you have the number really quick?
I just got the number. It was 200 million plus. That's it. That's what the ICO raised.
Pretty close. It's only 50 million off.
Take it over.
Yeah, that's pretty good. So in terms of these things are so hard to know about. I think for the most part, like a normal interface user like myself or one of you guys just kind of like storing data on Filecoin, it's unlikely something like this is going to happen. They're normally like deep protocol issues that would affect someone who's really involved in the network, like the miners or exchanges or someone at Protocol Labs. Someone who's just like interfacing it on like a normal MetaMask wallet or whatever the interface is for Filecoin, probably nothing is going to happen. Like you're storing data there, and the worst case scenario is that your data is lost, but there's so many redundancies in the systems, which is like the purpose of it, that is like extremely unlikely to happen. So I would say just like maybe overall be mindful of how much you put into these systems as they're being built out. It's still new. It's only 6 months on the market. And this idea overall is very new. It's like 5 years old. So I don't know if there's like any huge warning I can give. Like DeFi, huge warning. Be careful, but not for this one.
Yeah, and the flaw of Filecoin claim was that it was a misunderstanding or a misuse of the API by Binance because Binance was relying on their API to check it. But it looks like Filecoin's team, when they published a fix to GitHub and we're working on that, like the API was incomplete. So it's since been updated, but it does seem like it was a bug on that end. And I think, Jen, maybe the large takeaway here, and Will's been harping on it too, is just that like all of this tech, like it can break in various ways. And this little thing that is, maybe not seemingly a foundational part of the larger network that Filecoin's looking to build, basically allowed exchange to double a deposit incorrectly. And so there's all this moving parts that can create some issues. But, I believe, like I said, it's been updated and fixed at this point. But this is just kind of the natural growing pains. And Filecoin, this is kind of going back to the BOA report, right? Like Filecoin's not doing this just to like work as a centralized body in the current systems. Like they're going to go through things and things are going to break sometimes, and that's okay. But that was sort of the large takeaway to me, is just what the effects of one small break can actually be.
Colin, you're on the tech desk. What's I just called you Colin. You're not Colin. Colin reported this story.
This is Colin's story. I am not Colin.
Where am I? What is going on? Oh my goodness. All right. Well, Ben, or whatever your name is, what is Colin's follow-up here?
Like, we're calling you Colin now.
Yeah. Sorry, Ben. You're now Colin.
Tell me. What's next?
Guy.
Well, how are you guys approaching this story? Is this like a bug that's been resolved? Is there a follow up here? Like, what's next in terms of this story as it relates to Colin's reporting? And you are not Colin, you are Ben.
Exactly. So I can't exactly say what's next. I think, it's just sort of continuing to follow this issue. There seems to be some kind of back and forth about whose responsibility it was, whether it's Filecoin or Binance that did this. And, I think it'll just seeing how that shakes out. But I don't think that this is something that, is going to continue to be an issue going forward. But definitely, we're going to be following Filecoin. It's such a huge project, an incredibly ambitious one that, these are the kind of micro developments that warrant just keeping track of it as they continue to push forward.
Yes, so Filecoin, I want to ask you a question explaining this because I haven't dug into their procedures there. So RPC was the issue. It's their remote procedure call. So essentially, this is a channel that Binance was using to verify whether a transaction was legit or not. And it was Filecoin's software was saying yes or no. And so this was outside of the scope of it didn't have proof of work, for example, to say, yes, this is legit. It was calling on a different channel, and there was some way that this was malleable and people could deposit things twice. Is that the idea of this?
Yeah, so Filecoin says it wasn't an RPC issue. That was some other developers that were saying that. So this is why we're doing this reporting, is to get clarity around these issues. Filecoin says it was an API, but basically and I want to make sure I get this wording right, but the Filecoin miners tried to boost their transaction because it was slow. So they did a replace by fee and sent another transaction with a higher fee. And so that's what caused for there to be a double deposit in this regard. Binance basically took both of those deposits as legitimate, even though one was intended to replace the other. So that was what happened there. But yeah, the RTC thing is a little bit contested in this regard.
All right, well, let's go from RPC to NFT. We're going to take a break, but then after the break, we're going to talk about Tony Hawk and Lindsay Lohan, the latest celebrities to rush in to NFT Mania. Let's do this thing. Stick with us for the break. Bye.
You nailed that trick.
Wow.
That was a 540 ollie.
And welcome to Hash. If you're just joining us now, we are in our NFT Mania segment. There is Tony Hawk. We can see him in our video. This is from Instagram. So Tony Hawk is auctioning an NFT of his last Ollie 540 ever. And to top off the NFT news today, Lindsay Lohan has partnered with Justin Sun to release some NFTs of her own. So I know that we have an emotional roller coaster show when it comes to NFTs. Will, I don't think you've weighed in on NFTs in a while, so I'm going to throw this right to you. What do you think of Tony Hawk's NFT and Lindsay Lohan just, taking over the headlines again of Mr. Since Mean Girls?
Well, I don't want a Tony Hawk NFT of a 540. I want a Tony Hawk tier NFT because he started balling there, and that'd be way cooler to have. The Lindsay Lohan
what
thing.
Is an Ollie 540? I have no idea what this is.
I don't know.
And what would a tier NFT be?
Yeah, exactly, Jen. He just did that in the air. And
1.5 spin. Yeah.
Okay.
A tier NFT, I don't know, digitize the tier because it seems much more valuable. The Lindsay Lohan thing, I don't understand that. I don't really want to wade into that. Zack was really big on reporting that, and
thanks, guys. Appreciate
Lindsay Lohan guy over there. So.
Appreciate you. Thanks.
We'll let him get onto that. I think NFTs are obviously very frothy right now. It's a lot like the ICO bubble in 2017. So I think that is something to take into consideration. Long term, I think there's some potential there if everyone kind of takes the Ethereum blockchain as something of value, kind of in the same way that we see Bitcoin as something of value just by social consensus. I think if people view Ethereum as a layer for putting data and everyone agrees that has a legal value, then NFTs could be a thing. You could see like deeds and copyrights and contracts and even art on it that maintains value. But like this stuff is a little silly. We'll give it to the Lindsay Lohan guy.
Thank you. I stand
Zack.
queen.
Really working on that branding there.
So just point of fact, both of these experiments are not on Ethereum. So this one, so Lindsay Lohan is on Tron, and the Tony Hawk one is on Eternity Network, which I think is its own thing. So these are other base layers trying to get into the Ethereum NFT space, by potentially being able to offer fans, lower fees than what they would pay on the Ethereum mainnet. So in that sort of technical regard, that's what's going on here. But yeah, I mean, Will, I think you nailed it. Like, this market right now is so frothy. I think the 69 million people NFT was a game changer that like took anyone who was sitting on the fence about doing NFTs and tipped them over to the yes, let's do that, there might be money here side of that decision. So I think what we're seeing is sort of the ripple effect of that major Beeple NFT sale effect. That is, I'm sorry, I didn't even mean to ripple on that one. Are there Ripple NFTs yet? Can I get Ripple NFTs? XRP NFTs? Is that happening yet? Okay, sure. Well, maybe when that happens, that'd be cool.
Yeah, I think what's interesting right now is like, and part of the reason people are jumping into this, Zach, is like, there's no reason not to. Like, we've not yet had a kind of exact use case about like why people shouldn't do this. It just seems like people are selling these things and they're making a lot of money. And that's why, like, maybe I just am cynical and focus on the dark side of things. But that's why I think like the cyber exploit being sold as an NFT, or like, the nifty gateway account takeovers and other things are like really interesting, because until people start getting like hurt by this, then I think we're going to continue to expand in this arena. And that's something I'm kind of waiting on, not hoping for, but just waiting on the other shoe to drop.
I'm just going to say that I was hurt by the Charmin NFT, the toilet paper NFT, the NFTP. That hurt me. People have been hurt, Ben. So I just want to pipe up.
Okay.
Before I toss it back to Naomi, I just need
you need some tissues for that.
I'm gonna have to get some. Yeah.
So I want to read out Lindsay Lohan's tweet. She says, Bitcoin is the future happening now. Support my vision of empowerment by collecting this one-of-one NFT from wearable.com. And it's like, she sounds so good. She's like, Bitcoin, empowerment, therefore Tron network and NFTs. Like, I was
going to say, that's like the SEO of saying nothing.
Yeah. I don't think she realizes what she's talking about. I honestly think that, there's probably a reason why she's partnering with Justin. He is like the king of publicity and marketing. He does it so well, Hats off to Justin for always making an announcement of a partnership that wasn't really a partnership. He's great at spin. I'll give him that. And Lindsay loves the headlines. And so I feel like she is just jumping on this saying, everyone's talking about NFTs and they're using words like empowerment and Bitcoin. So I'll talk about that and then use it to sell this NFT that isn't Bitcoin at all. Why is she promoting Bitcoin and talking about empowerment in the same sentence as talking about this thing that is completely other than that and on a centralized platform like Rarible? Zach?
Mm-hmm. Well, so it's been a journey, right? So she's been sort of in this space for like a month, sort of exploring that stuff. So she did do that.
She's OG now.
She's OG now. She's a long timer. So she did the Rarible one. She did the Rarible one like prior to this Tron announcement. So Tron is sort of like the continuation. So that's like an interesting thing. And then like also in this announcement, if you notice, there are some other like musicians involved in this Tron NFT platform. So clearly Lindsay is not alone here. I saw Paris Hilton was getting in on the act, talking to one of the big NFT whales, whale shark or something like that. And one of these big Ethereum NFT guys was singing her praises. Yeah.
Was one of those musicians. Ben, you tweeted yesterday that nobody asked for this, and you are right.
This is the collab nobody asked for. That's my take on it.
Dan, your other tweet today was great, though. Yeah, what's your favorite kind of Bitcoin? I like Cardano or whatever.
Oh my God, yeah. Somebody texted me today. It was what do you know about the Bitcoin called Cardano or something like that? And I was just, I'm ready for the weekend, guys. That's it.
Just throw it in your mouth a little bit.
There's a lot more education we need to do, guys.
It's true. Right. It's true.
All right. Okay. I think it's my turn to wrap it up. All right. We're going to wrap it up. We're going to get out of the NFT space. Well, kind of. And we're going to go to the metaverse. Now, this is an interesting story. There is a casino in Decentraland that is hiring people and bringing employment to virtual worlds. So this is called Decentral Games. They have a casino. If you want to be a greeter or like a pit boss, they will pay you to greet people in this virtual space and explain how they can get involved. So I think the big idea here is, real employment in fake worlds. Well, not fake, but virtual. What are some other like employment use cases that we could see outside of like casino dealers and like, casino greeters? Like what's the next metaverse employment story that's going to come across our radar? I'm going to throw this to Jen. Jen,
NFT
when are we
museum
gonna, when are we going to start working in the metaverse? You were feeling good? Will, go. Dude, take it.
No, it's Jen's moment. Let's hear these ideas. They better be good.
Let's shop it.
I don't have any great ideas.
Metaverse
First
shop.
of all, I love this. I mean, you always hear this narrative of everything's going online. People are going to lose jobs. And here's a great use case of how we can still operate online. We can still have AI-esque applications, and we can still have real jobs. So the casino use case was really cool to me. And I think this just, I guess, makes me look to a future where there are going to be a lot of jobs like this. I think COVID kind of pushed us really quickly into a future that may have taken longer to get to if we didn't have this global pandemic. And so I think like anything is possible. Like we could have virtual restaurant jobs and virtual retail. I think it's going to be retail. Online shopping, there's going to be virtual, shopping assistants. That's my guess.
Yeah, I was going to say, I feel like there's also talk about like building museums in like Decentraland to house all these NFTs. And so I feel like another one would be kind of like a museum tour guide. They kind of walk you through, tell you some of the backstories about these NFTs and stuff like that. Like we always want to hear about this like creative process behind these things and why people buy them. So some sort of interaction there, just given the current buzz, feels like another natural sort of landing spot for an employment.
I'm back.
You attended.
I had to do my metaverse. Yeah. I did my metaverse side hustle for a second, but I'm back.
Frozen in contemplation.
Yeah. What did I miss? Catch me up. What happened? Naomi, fill me in.
I'm gonna mention something like, I mean, in a world where, as you said, Jen, people are like more and more things are becoming automated, especially in this pandemic moment. People want servers to not be human if they're worried about catching a virus. And so while you've got the real world is going more into automation, it seems strange to me that this, fake verse is going into the like real world job employment. It seems like a perfect example of where automation could work. Have an avatar that is queued up to something like GPT-3 and is like mimicking speech and just program it with a bunch of stuff so it could just, replicate a speech. It is interesting that they've decided to go the human route instead. I mean, it's surprising, but interesting to me.
Yeah, I mean, so our colleague Danny Nelson, spoke with the founder of this platform, and that's what they said. That's what they said they were going for, right? It's complicated enough to sort of like be in these worlds and to have the human touch, like to have someone be like, okay, here's how it goes for real, as opposed to having, a bot as you would see in other games was definitely what they were going for. So, yeah,
interesting.
Real world employment in virtual land.
On this panel would like to volunteer to do some investigative journalism and become a casino host for us?
Well, if you attended Consensus last year, we did this where I walked through a museum and had someone direct the gallery. So if you come to Consensus this year, you might get the same experience. You can come to a casino, maybe win some coins. Who knows?
That's right. We did point of fact for viewers. We did the CoinDesk offsite this year in virtual reality. So that was pretty cool. But anyway,
so when digital labor unions,
it's the next step.
It's going to be super interesting
there, Ben. So we're moving over. Yeah, we're moving over to Goldman Sachs, which yesterday, ostensibly, or this morning, had a report from a lot of first-year analysts come out saying that they are brutally overworked. I think the median work week for them was about 95 hours, and every single person who filled out this report for Goldman Sachs, who was interviewed, complained that their work-life balance had fallen drastically to the point where their relationships outside of work basically were non-existent. I think they're getting 5 hours of sleep a night. So it's interesting to look into the world of traditional banking, compare that with crypto. what the work-life standard is like between those two worlds. And then just kind of like a larger market picture where for the last year, it's basically been a bull market across every type of asset, equities to crypto. And the people who are involved in those industries are certainly cleaning up, while a lot of other industries are not doing as well. But the people in those industries that are doing well are suffering from really exhausting hours. So I don't know how much sympathy people at Goldman Sachs are going to get from the wider public, but I want to toss it down to Naomi.
Yeah, I will just mention, like, if you think about your parents and how much they had to pay for a house and to have like a really comfortable lifestyle, how much they had to work, then look at your grandparents and how much they had to pay to get a house and how much of a percentage of their income it was. Like, it's getting harder and harder and harder for young people to actually have a reasonable standard of living because the baby boomer generation's completely screwed it up for us. They ran things out of control, and now we have all this crazy inflation, and we say that it's not seeping in. It's absolutely seeping in. Things are more expensive than ever, especially if you're a young person who is trying to get a degree, trying to, have a family, support a family, have a house. Like, it's astronomical. It's way out of most people's reach today, and people have to work longer and longer hours in order to get a similar standard of living. I kind of always default to millennials are just entitled and complain a lot and all that. But if they're actually saying that it's 95 hours a week that these people are working, that's crazy. You do see that a lot. Like, it's hard for young people, and they are struggling because the economy is so screwed up right now, and people are just losing value, and incomes are not rising as fast as inflation is pushing up prices.
Yeah, this is just another failure of the traditional financial system, right? Like, if we're talking about disruption, this is disrupting their employees' lives to an absurd extent. Like, this is absolutely ridiculous. There's no reason anybody should have to work 95 hours a week, get 5 hours of sleep, not have any relationships outside of work. Like, that is absurd. Like, Spain's experimenting with a 4-day-a-week work week, and yet you have people at Goldman, who are sure on monetarily benefiting from this, but like, is this a future anybody wants? Like, what's the value add here for the world in generally? I think it just kind of seems to be an insular hole where like the people there keep making more money, and that doesn't trickle down to anybody, and then it destroys your life in some ways outside of work. So that was my takeaway from this. Like, why is this necessary at all?
I mean, I'll pretend to be the boomer on the panel, and I'll be like, well, did it say how much these people are making? And can I be like the guy who's like, all these Ivy League grads, it sucks. So I'm going to be that guy. I've seen a lot of people on Twitter being like, work in crypto, and like, come on, Goldman analysts, like, leave TradFi, come to DeFi, where you can be your own taskmaster and can stay up without someone telling you that you have to stay up and work 95 hours. So I don't know about this one. I mean, I sympathize with their overworked state, but I would imagine that they're being compensated pretty decently for it. I would hope, at least. Will, what do you got?
Yeah, I'll go really quick and then toss it to Naomi. I think that you see in a lot of people the desire to work for big name brands, especially something like Goldman Sachs, like that carries a lot of weight. And I think that the future of employment might be a little bit different just with COVID and decentralization of work itself. People aren't working in New York City doing Goldman Sachs anymore. They're working in Miami or Austin or other places working for Goldman Sachs. I have a friend right now who's working for Goldman Sachs from his parents' house, and he normally lives in Utah there, but that world doesn't really exist anymore. So I think you're going to see some people trickling out of these bigger name places just because it doesn't matter as much, and the work-life balance is pretty terrible. But I'll boot it down to Naomi.
Yeah,
well, actually, I
will
ask,
kind of just.
Like, did you ask your friend? Did you ask your friend about the report? Is your friend?
I texted him this morning. I said, "This you," and he doesn't respond yet.
Okay,
I think that means it is him.
Good stuff. All right, sorry, Naomi. I had to jump in. I had to jump in.
To be clear, this is not CoinDesk reporting. This is wild speculation.
Speculation. I will mention, you make a great point, Zach. I think that at the end of the day, people need to make their own choices. There are other jobs to go around. There are lots of states that are looking for, hiring people in all kinds of capacities. And there are online resources that are free where people can retrain themselves as well. But I think the point you bring up about like the compensation is great. Some people really want that. Some people want to earn a ton of money and they want to work all long hours and they're happy with that. And that's their value system. But I think that, Will, you bring up a great point about how even despite that, dynamics are shifting with decentralization, because to live in New York and have like a reasonable standard of living, you need to be earning so much money. Like I lived there for 8 years and I was in a shoebox, to get into my bedroom, you had to like pry open the door and like squeeze in and move the, portable stand out the way, close the door behind you. Like it's crazy. It's so expensive there. And so you have to just be working such long hours and you get to the point where you're like, I'm working 95 hours a week. I'm living in a shoebox, but I have to work these hours in order to afford this place to live in this great city, which I can't even take advantage of because I'm working so long. So now that we have decentralization, people moving to Miami, moving to places where there aren't income taxes that are astronomical like in New York, your real estate prices are not astronomical like they are in New York, I think we are going to get a big shift in wealth there. And yeah, it's interesting to see what's going to happen.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if crypto is a chill, alternative. Like, I would love to see like the DeFi degen version of this report, right? Like, solicit anyone who is like locked into these markets 24/7 and tell me if they're working more than 95 hours. That would be a fascinating report. We should
like interview people that sleep under their desk as day traders. Like, come on.
Yeah, like I'm thinking of like Sam Bankman-Fried, right? Like he's not sleeping on that like beanbag for his health, So I'd just be curious I would love to see like an apples to apples like report. That'd be pretty cool.
I think we all need to go outside, get some rays.
All right, okay. Turn the show off. We're wrapping the show. We're going outside. We're going to get some rays, and that is it. That is the Friday edition of The Hash. We're going to take a nice long weekend, but we'll be back on Monday. Hey, if you want to watch more great CoinDesk TV, 3 p.m. Eastern, all about Bitcoin. It's a great show. I'm Zach. We got Naomi. We got Ben. We got Jen. We got Will. Let's all say bye at the same time. 1, 2, 3.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.